guys for showing up. I'm very excited about this panel. I think voice technology is the future of the space. And so it's very interesting to see where it is now, where it's headed, like what are the top use cases, and then what are some of the benefits the users and the businesses are getting out of it. So I guess you guys can start by introducing yourself. I'll drop off, and at the very end, right around like I want to say 11:55, 11:50, depending on how it goes, I'll jump back in, and then we'll start taking questions from the audience. So without further ado, Carl, take it away.
Thanks very much, Stefan. Okay, nice to be here. My name's Carl Robinson. I'm the host of the Voice Tech podcast. I've interviewed more than 100 experts in voice technology and conversational AI. You can check that out at voicetechpodcast.com. I'm also the recent co-founder and CEO of Rumble Studio, which is a tool that lets businesses record and publish audio fast. In fact, we're the first company to record asynchronous guest interviews using conversational AI. And you can create a free account for that at rumble.studio. I'll hand it over to Jason.
Hey, everybody. My name is Jason Fields. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer for a platform called Voicify, which is a voice content management or voice experience platform. And I have in common with Tanmay and Rachel that I work with and collaborate with both of their teams on what their voice experiences are. Rachel?
I'm Rachel Waldstein. I am the Director of CRM and Retention at Wolverine Worldwide. So I sit in our e-commerce division and oversee our portfolio of 12 brands.
Fantastic. I'm excited for this voice panel as well. Really, we're just going to cut straight to the chase.
Did we introduce Tanmay?
Oh, excuse me. Yeah, Tanmay, please go ahead.
Hi. I'm still here. No, it's funny. We're having some technical issues getting on, but I think we're back, and at least I'm back. So you guys are you're all good. But hi, guys. My name is Tanmay Patel. I'm a Director of Digital Technology over here at the Philadelphia Eagles. We've been tinkering in the voice space for a couple of years now. Really, more importantly, the last year has been the most meaningful for us, working with Voicify and really getting our host of content on our voice platforms, so Alexa and Google. So excited to be here.
Great to be on the panel chairing this amongst all you guys. As I was about to say, it's fantastic to be trying to answer the question that's on everyone's lips, which is how voice is being used in the real world and what the results were. We got two fantastic case studies from Philadelphia Eagles and Wolverine Worldwide. Why don't we start things off with the question, like, why voice? Your organizations, both your organizations are active on a variety of channels already. You've got teams of people working on those channels. So why did you choose voice and why now? And why don't we start with Rachel?
Sure. So a couple reasons. We had a practical need as the pandemic hit. We obviously increased our e-commerce division, and in turn, our customer service teams got absolutely crushed, with the need to take down the number of people that we had in our distribution centers. Our shipping went a little bit slower, and therefore there were a lot of calls asking where their package was. So the most simple thing that voice could offer us is the opportunity for a consumer to track their package without calling customer service, saving us just man hours on that side. So that's sort of the very practical use case for why voice is helpful to us. The far more fun use case is that it is another marketing channel for us, and one that we can hear directly from our consumers. We know what their next question is. We can understand and feed them information and continue to build on that and be a fun place for them to go and interact with us. I don't think anybody visits maybe they do. I hope they do, but I don't think anybody visits any of our sites for like a really fun experience. But you can ask your Merrill app to find a trail near you and go hiking on it. So that's a really practical use of our product that we can bring into the real world that a consumer might just be doing. They're probably not going to go to Merrill.com to find a hiking trail. They're going to go to Google. And so, we've been able to connect those two things through voice.
Very interesting. So to expand on that then, so your company represents a number of different brands, a diverse portfolio of brands. It's centered around shoes, as I understand. You've got Merrill, Hush Puppies, Wolverine, Bates. You're also the licensee of brands like Cat and Harley Davidson. And so you've built an Alexa app with the help of Voicify, of course, to help people to find a running trail. This was specifically for the Merrill brand, as I understand?
Yes, that instance was for, the hiking trail was for Merrill.
Okay, fantastic. Tamay, how about you? Why did you choose voice, and why now in particular?
Yeah, I mean, we have kind of similar patterns to Rachel, but for us, the NFL has really become a 365-day content opportunity. Obviously, we know the regular season when it comes and goes, and we provide a host of opportunities and content distribution plays. But really, for us, it's outside the regular season as well. It matters. So free agency, the draft, schedule release, mini camps, training camps. It's become like a no days off type of 365-day calendar for us. These tentpole events have driven fan engagement through the roof at pretty much every tentpole event. So we see it as an opportunity to provide exclusive and inside access to our fans wherever they are. Our brand promise is to inspire and serve the greatest football community in America, or in the world rather. So for us to serve the fan, we need to be where the fans are. So as voice platforms become more and more ubiquitous in the world, we want to kind of start exploring that space and see what meaningful content opportunities we can serve up. We also saw in the pandemic, the content consumption patterns have truly changed. I don't know if anybody's into sports, Sports Innovation Lab, shout out to Josh Walker. They do a great job, and they've been kind of studying the fluidity of the fan. And really, we've been looking at that space as well and looking at what those content consumption patterns have been. What we found is, fans want smaller doses, but they want it now. And I think the voice skills lend themselves really nicely in us playing in this arena. Yeah.
Very nice. Yeah, I can see you're on a variety of different channels. You've already got mobile app, you've got the website, so it makes sense that you've also got the voice channel as well. I understand you're also working in terms of the venues themselves. Obviously, you've got the Lincoln Financial Field, which is hosted tens of thousands of fans each event, and you're using voice in actually on the stadium as well. Is that right?
We are. So we worked with another vendor, Satisfy Labs, to do a game day offering for our staff members. So one of the biggest needs that we have when we're thinking about like a stadium space, when we're serving 73,000+ fans for pretty much every event, what we found is for our game day staff, it was very important for them to communicate to our what we call kind of the brains of the operation. So how do we best utilize voice as an easy way for them to say, hey, I'm in section 132. I see a broken chair. There's fans coming into the building. I need to be able to report this as soon as possible. Our current infrastructure didn't allow us to help ease that communication pain. So we're relying on voice there as well. So now our stadium staff can really just talk to our app, and really that channel is given straight to our stadium ops team, and they're able to understand, what's the problem, and they're able to help solve that problem, as soon as it occurs, which has been a huge thing for us. We've been playing around that space for about 2-3 years now. And really our game day staff loves it. It's a huge opportunity to almost enable them to be loud about anything that they see, including their own selves, right? Like prior to the pandemic, we also found that when we have a game day staff of like 5,000 people working on game days, at any point, maybe there's an injury or somebody feels sick of sorts, right? And they need to be able to be relieved. So the need of communication on game days is just crucial and imperative. So we play around the voice space in that arena as well. And it's become very, very, very useful.
Very interesting. I want to dive into the solutions that you guys have built with the help of the Voicify platform as well. But Jason, I thought maybe you could introduce Voicify for the people who've not already come across that.
Sure. I think most people here probably have experience with a web content management system, where the idea is to abstract the need to have custom code or development against like a Microsoft old Internet Explorer browser or a Google Chrome browser or a Apple Safari browser. Instead, you want to be concerned about the experience, the content, the design, the feel, the purpose, the utility of the web experience, and then use a system like a content management system to deploy it out to those endpoints of Chrome, Safari, etc. We took that model and applied it to voice, because we knew that it was going to be very frustrating and complicated and a barrier to entry into the voice space for a lot of brands if they had to employ different teams to think and work against Alexa and Google Assistant and Samsung Bixby and custom bots inside of native mobile apps and chatbots, because those are conversational as well, right? So we collected all of those endpoints, looked at them all from a development and deployment standpoint, normalized everything into our platform, and allow our customers to, again, think about the experience, the utility, the purpose, the look, the feel, the aesthetic of a voice experience, and to be able to manage that in one place, being Voicify, and then deploy it out to one or many of their selected endpoints based on what their business and the market is asking them for.
I can see you support all the major voice assistants like Alexa, Google Assistant, Bixby. You do custom voice assistants and also a range of chatbots. I've seen a lot of chat apps on your site, mobile, web, SMS, the whole range. Could you give us an idea of which of those channels were applied to Wolverine's case study, for example, and then maybe Rachel, you'd like to tell us how those are actually being used in practice and what the results were?
Sure.
Yeah, the easy choice for Wolverine was to go with Alexa and Google Assistant, because those are the two major players, and there's a lot of, I think, and Rachel will probably speak to it, marketing opportunities and name recognition with those two sort of behemoths of an organization. So it was a real easy way to integrate into existing communications, marketing, planning, etc.
Yeah, and I think to build on what Jason said about, it was very appealing for me to not have to build the solution and maintain it, because voice is a marketing channel that it's different than anything else. It's, I own email and direct mail and SMS, and it's still different than that in digital, just in the way that you think about the content and how you would communicate with the consumer, how you write the content. It's all different. So to have that platform that you can just dump into and work with the Voicify team to create your content is so helpful, and you don't need to worry about if it's actually going to work when you publish it to Amazon or Google. You just are confident that it's going to. So that in of itself was hugely, it was definitely the reason that we bothered to even try it at first. And then as far as, how we've been able to do it, or why what we brought to life. When we first started, what we still do is, what we focus on is, when would the consumer use this as it relates to our product? So what is that consumer experience? So for Saucony, we talked about prepping for your long run and thinking about the consumer who was sitting on her living room floor, getting ready to go for a long run, and then asking about the things that she needed. So what's the stretching before? What's the nutrition? What's the what shoes do I need? How do I know if my shoes have too many miles on them? Those sorts of things. And thinking through that single experience to develop the content. We own the term work boots. So Wolverine as a whole, like you mentioned, we have Wolverine brand, we have Bates, we have Caterpillar, we have Harley, and Merrill also makes work boots. So we have a huge presence in the work boot space. We have an opportunity to communicate with consumers about their work boots and offer up the best solution across our portfolio, regardless of brand. So for that, it's about thinking through the guy who's busted his boots during the day, and if he's in his car and he's able to ask, okay, I need a good pair of boots. I need them to be waterproof. I work in a cold area. And it's not going to serve up the best Wolverine product, although it may be a Wolverine brand product. It's going to serve up the best product that Wolverine Worldwide has in our portfolio for that solution. So our ability to own that term and exclude other competitor brands from that in the workspace, we can't do that in regular search, right? The term work boots, anybody can bid on that search term. We own that in the voice space through our Voicify app.
That's very powerful. You said there was a large number of terms, a large number of things that your customers could ask for around going for a long run. I wondered, it's a question really for all the panelists actually, like how important is iteration, the test and learn cycle in discovering all of these? Because to come up with them all up front, back in the office, must be a bit of a big ask.
I think on this one, good news, bad news is one of the things, maybe Jason said it early when we were building. If you build it, they will not come. So you need to market your voice app. And so the ability to build a skill, market that skill, and then learn what else consumers are asking your app after you've built it helps you sort of build that roadmap of content. So you can really use your consumers' direct questions to help inform your next step.
Very nice. Tanmay, I'm interested to hear about your project as well. Jason told me before the panel that there was a bit of a time constraint on the requirements as well. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, we have a pretty worldwide recognizable brand, right? However, if anybody's been in the sports space, they know, we all kind of operate in a very small team-based organization. So, we have one web developer on the entire staff, and he does a lot. He's not only managing our websites, but he's also managing our web apps, and now any and all emerging technologies such as voice. So we're a little bit resource strapped when it comes to trying new things, especially emerging technologies like voice. So having the ability for us to utilize a CMS-oriented approach just makes sense. When we thought about, hey, let's play in this voice space because we can deliver a really interesting content in a different manner. First question was like, all right, where do we even start? How do we create an Alexa skill? What do we need to learn to even create an Alexa skill? All those different questions were really the roadblocks for us. We didn't know where to start. Do we even have the opportunity to afford ourselves time to pause in what we're supposed to be doing? Just go and say, hey, we're going to go take an Alexa class and figure out how to create a skill and then go and utilize that and create that Alexa skill. And we just didn't have that time. So having a CMS system or a CMS-driven approach like what Jason mentioned is absolutely crucial. So for us, working with Voicify just made sense. We were able to architect a lot of if then else kind of scenarios. What if the fan did this? What would we kind of serve them up with? And how do we program that in a very easily executable manner? And the solution provides a neat way to do that without a lot of effort on our end. So that's been, to be honest, a huge win for us.
Yeah, and Jason mentioned something about 2 weeks before draft day, so that was a really, really tight schedule that you guys were trying to meet.
Right.
So I understand that you have both a podcast integration and some kind of gamification in your app. Can you tell us about that as well?
Yeah, really, for us, like year zero is what I call it, right? It's our origin year. We don't know anything. We didn't know anything about the space. We didn't know where to start. How do we program? To Rachel's point, I'll echo that one as well, is we didn't even know about these false cadences and utterances. Like, what are fans asking for, and how do we find out like what the misses were? So for us, it was a lot of learning, and it was trying to understand like what can we do here. So for us, when we started interacting with Voicify and working with that team, 2 weeks before the draft, when we launched, we said, well, look, the easiest way to start is we have a huge plethora of our podcast portfolio. Let's just put that on there and see what happens. Would fans interact with it if we were to market that particular voice skill and utterance? And some did. We also saw those misses in terms of what fans were asking for. We also thought about programming in just like informational opportunities, like when does the draft start? Who did we just pick and things of that sort, just to understand like what our fan behavioral patterns would be and how do we maybe influence them through marketing opportunities. So we started there, and it was an easy start and a lot of good wins because one, we understood how to utilize the platform, and not only that, how to like think about Alexa skills and Google skills in general. But from that point on, we're sitting there looking at our own families interact with these voice apps, and my kids play the Disney Mickey Mouse trivia game all the time now. But when we were starting to work with Voicify, I used to ask them like, hey, go check out the podcast and see what happens. And then the kids would do it. And then ultimately they find out that there is Mickey Mouse answering back to them. So they're like, no, I'm going to go and interact with Mickey Mouse for like 10 minutes or 15 minutes. And we're like, that's interesting. So then we started thinking about like the creative way to present these portfolios or even interactive opportunities. So, we have a voice of the Eagles, Merrill Reese. He's a huge recognizable name with a very recognizable voice. So we're starting to task him to kind of say those utterances back to our fans and welcome the fans into the skill. We also thought that it would be a really neat opportunity to play with more interactive content, just like how Disney is doing and some of these other bigger brands are doing, right? So we started with trivia games. We didn't have the greatest of seasons last year, so we had a lot of coaches turnover over the off season. So brand new coaching staff, a new coach came in, nobody knew about him. So we started to get him in front of the media and to our fans. We thought it'd be a really creative way. Not only, we were doing the press conferences and everybody is, aware of those type of things, but why don't we do almost a Q&A with Coach Sirianni to get to know him better through voice. So almost these kind of, it's almost extending our current strategy of content now to utilize voice now and think about these interactive content that maybe just, helps kind of drive fans towards both opportunities. So we did that Q&A with Coach Sirianni. It did pretty well. So now we're playing around with all of these kind of interactive capabilities that we can do with voice very easily, right? So we're thinking about 2 truths and a lie, and how would that game work on Alexa? And, we can say things like, hey, Alexa, I apologize for anybody who has their Alexa devices on, but hey, Alexa, like play the Eagles fight song. And we have that fight song coming on. We're miking up the coaches right now, and we have mini camp going on. And if you see any football coaches, in the field, they're like yelling and screaming and trying to hype up the players. So we're thinking about things like, hey, Alexa, ask the Eagles to hype me up. And we would have our coaches come in and like start utilizing the same micings, but now in an interactive way. So we're thinking about more and more of those opportunities just to be a little bit more different in this space.
I love that. Yeah, you started with the content that you already had, the podcast content, and then that led to you exploring the more interactive features. And it was the same thing on the user side. You said your children were first listened to the podcast, and then they discovered the Mickey Mouse voice. So yeah, very, very interesting. It's almost like podcasting is the gateway drug to voice.
Yeah, it truly is. Well, it definitely is for us.
Fantastic. I'm really keen to know about what the response has been from your audiences as well. Whether that what the impact on KPIs has been, what the feedback's been from the customer base. I know you're measuring things on the back end, but it'll be great to hear what the customers are saying as well. Rachel, do you have any particular items you can share with us?
The stronger the marketing, the better the engagement. So things that we are building, people are enjoying. So I would say the Merrill Trail Finder is a really strong winner for us. And we are seeing that. We are definitely seeing some engagement around tracking an order and things like that, although we have a ton of opportunity to market it more so that consumers actually know that it's there. But the fact that consumers are looking for that intuitively is a really good sign that when that comes up in the to-do list of things that we need to jump on, we're pretty confident it will work.
Excellent. And Tame?
Yeah, we when we started out, we saw a couple of 100 fans interact with our voice apps without any marketing. And then we saw that spike to close to 2,000 unique users on our voice apps throughout the season. And we really thought, like, look, without any marketing, our audience size is great. It's in the millions. And even having 2,000 fans interact week over week is pretty promising. Again, if you build it, they'll come is not necessarily the case because fans just don't know that we exist in this space. We recently took a survey during the draft in terms of letting our fans know, like, hey, did you know we exist here? And 67% of the fans who took the poll said that they didn't know. So for us, now we're thinking about how to best market all of our voice skills, almost as an additive element to all the other things that we're doing, right? Like we just talked about those podcasts, but maybe there's an opportunity to say, here's what we're doing. Here's a press conference with our coach. And by the way, here's a quick utterance that you can say on voice to bring up some really unique creative content. So marketing, just telling fans that we exist is super, super important. But yeah, we're tracking close to 2,000 unique users during the season, which is pretty promising with little to no marketing.
Very interesting. Based on your experiences with voice so far, like what advice would you give to a company who is about to embark on a similar project? And in terms of tracking the results, what would you say they should focus on?
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, Rachel.
Nope, you got it, Rachel.
I would put together the marketing plan with the content. I think that's it's equally, if not more important, that you are ready to go with all of those elements as well. Because at least on our side, there was, instances where we launched the content and we felt good about it and people sort of felt like, all right, that's done. But it's not. And so it is 50% of the effort when it comes to getting a skill live or content within a skill live.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I would say give yourself the opportunity to learn the space. We thought coming into it, we knew the space as much as anybody could. We learned a ton more just in 1 year, because once you put your content out there or any sort of any sort of content within these voice space, your fans will let you know in terms of how to utilize it. Again, we look at missed utterances all the time just to see, like, during the draft, our fans asking for something and we're just not delivering. So that was an important learning ability that we had to kind of start, almost flexing a little bit. But learn as much as you can, give yourself the opportunity. Don't think of starting off year one as wins and thinking about the fact that you're going to change the world. I promise you'll learn quite a bit in just a couple of months. Even though you know what's going on here, fan behavior is what it is, and it'll dictate a lot of your strategic calls on voice, especially because this is emergent.
Excellent, Jason. Voicify have worked with more than 3,000 brands, I believe. So you must have a very broad view of what makes a project successful. I just wanted to ask you, in your opinion, what should clients do before they engage with Voicify to maximize their success with voice? And what steps can they take to prepare? And how should they set their expectations within their team?
Yeah, thanks for asking the question. Yeah, we just celebrated crossing over about 4,000 unique voice apps across Google and Alexa. So we're pretty stoked with the usage of our platform.
Congrats.
So
yeah,
the brands that are, thank you. The brands that are using our platform and are in voice, we think the most successful are doing exactly what Tanmay and Rachel are talking about, which is starting off slow and giving yourself a chance to learn, which I think then translates directly from a business standpoint into managing expectations. It's not an overnight thing. Just like the first time you hit publish with your domain in web, it wasn't an overnight success. There was effort that went into it. I think then also taking a global look at the ecosystem of content you have. And I think Tanmay describes it well about sort of a supporting or an ancillary channel that extends the value of that content. There's a lot of content that hits the cutting room floor, to use that analogy, which might have a life in another channel. Well, that channel is now here with voice. Or taking the approach that Rachel did with her team, which was, we don't have to do the whiz bang novelty stuff. Let's make something that is actually highly functional and utilitarian, both for the customer and brings a business value to the company itself, right? With the Track My Package. So I think overall, we're still in the early days of voice. 10 years from now, we're going to be talking in very complicated ways through our voice assistants to brands like the Philadelphia Eagles and Wolverine Worldwide. For the time being, there's still a bit of a buffer period where you get to be wrong without a lot of consequence. And I think that buffer period is coming to a close here relatively quickly. And the brands that are involved now that are getting those learnings from year 0 and year 1, when you run a race, if you can create that distance early on in the race and then maintain it, that's your competitive moat. They never catch up to you. So, and that's what I think brands that are being successful like Eagles and Wolverine are doing today.
Excellent. We're running out of time. I realized I had a lot more questions to ask you guys. The final one before we jump to the Q&A, I think, is where can people find out more about your companies and especially your Voicify powered voice experiences? Can you tell people how they can actually try this for themselves?
So when you shop any of our brands, so Sperry, Merrill, Keds, Wolverine brand, Cat Footwear, Track Your Package, you can ask your Amazon device or Google device where it is. Hopefully it will deliver to you very quickly. But then once you bought your Merrill shoes, you can go find a trail right there. We're also, our brands are also sold in wholesalers, your Nordstroms, REIs, those sorts of things.
Nice. What's the wake word? What's the invocation phrase, I should say, for the app again?
So for Merrill, for our brands, it's the brand name. And for Cat and Wolverine, it is Work Boots.
Work Boots. Okay. Great. Tanmay?
Awesome. I'm actually a Merrill customer and a big owner.
I'm not an Eagles fan. I'm sorry.
It's all good, but I can't wait to ask for the next hiking trail. That's actually pretty cool. I never knew that, but just to show you marketing, right? But I'm excited to use it. We're at PhiladelphiaEagles.com/voice. We have all of our information in there. Or you can ask your Alexa or Google devices, open Philadelphia Eagles or talk to Philadelphia Eagles, and you'll be taken to our welcome spot for our skills.
Fantastic. Excellent. I think we're bang on time. Stefan, did you want to share the Q&A? I don't know if you're coming back on. There we go.
Yeah, that was great. I think it's really exciting to see how people are using voice, especially brands like the Philadelphia Eagles, and I think it has so much potential. One of the questions that come up is, are you able to use any of the information from intents that you don't have to eventually serve up products directly to that person? So, for example, like let's say that I come to the Philadelphia Eagles bot and I'm asking questions about Jalen Hurts. How many yards did he throw for? What school did he go to? It's a fair assumption that I might be interested in buying his jersey or something like that.
Yeah, no, I think missed intents is as important. Tracking those is as important as non-missed intents, right? So for us, we're tracking actively in terms of just our lens towards voice. There's complications built into like how do we push merch and things of that sort, because we do have secondary deals in place. However, I will say if we start looking at major interest in particular players that maybe we're not hyping enough, there's an opportunity right there to go make sure that we understand that we got to maybe hype up that player more. But no, we are where the fans want to be. So, and we want to be where the fans are existing today. So it's important to listen to them and hear them. So missed intents are super important there.
Yeah. And as a second note, like what are the most popular types of topics or categories that fans are asking about?
It's all driven around our tentpole events. So a lot of fans asked more NFL draft questions last month when we were going through the draft process. Right now, it's all about asking for certain dates because the schedule was released, and it's all about understanding are we doing good in terms of serving up that content piece, especially in voice if we're missing some of these utterances. But it's usually revolved around like tentpole events.
I see. So are the questions more like what time does it start? How many picks do you have in this draft? Where are you picking, like that?
Exactly. And it's easy enough to ask your Google Assistant those questions, right? And I think that's the other thing that we've noted is we've posted that information everywhere, but yet fans are asking on this device because it's easy. It's right there. It's in front of you. So again, that's telling us something that this space is super important. And we want to make sure that we also address this space as well in terms of very easy deliverables.
Got it. Yeah, I think that and maybe you guys are a good example of this because I enjoy football. So, and I think with any piece of content like that, it's part of your home because you literally watch it at home most of the time, and you're thinking about it. Like you might be thinking about who's the passing yards leader. You might be asking those questions to Google, who has won the most Super Bowls, right? Yeah. And it's really important information that now they know that hey, maybe this guy really likes Tom Brady or Jalen Hurts or, he really likes Tom Cruise in the film industry. And the next time there's a Tom Cruise movie, we could sell him the appropriate, experience.
Yeah, Stefan, sorry, Tammy. There was a lot of limitations technically to allowing something like that happen. And this is going to sound like I'm paying you to lead into something for Voicify, and I didn't do that, everybody. But 2 weeks ago with our 3.0 release, we created the ability for non-technical people to actually identify flags about their people that they're speaking with them, the end user. So the use case of I asked 5 or 6 questions about a player, and that should inform the ability for me to offer, do you want to, you seem excited, let's get his jersey, or even better, or in addition to that, storing that information in the CRM about that user so that it can be applied in other channels, right? For Rachel and Wolverine Worldwide, it could be, if you've asked me about a trail every week for 32 weeks, it's time for a new pair of shoes, right? So using that behavioral information, not just in voice, but letting it apply to the entire business is a really powerful direction that this channel is going. And I'm not sure that everybody that's thinking of it as a novelty at this point has extrapolated that meaning into where this can go for brands.
Yeah, I would say that user segmentation is super important. We do that quite heavily on our mobile app and our websites, right? So we haven't done that nearly as enough here. We're just getting started. I think 3.0 is going to be a huge driver for us, but we need to start identifying these fans and then looking at these cross platform engagements just to see like who are our hyper fans, right? So it adds to the lifetime value and all those different things in the marketing world that we're interested in, right? Of these fans. So fan segmentation, even personalization, right, Jason? Like we've talked about that as well in terms of like, how do we personalize content to this specific guy or girl who really loves statistics? Maybe that's what they're looking for. So maybe the welcome message drives them towards understanding more about stats and things of that sort. Maybe that person is a daily fantasy football subscriber or even a sports betting, connoisseur. So those are important to understand as well, because now we can start programming based on those segmentation and behavioral patterns.
And that's where, and just to put an exclamation on it, that's where the year 0 and year 1 learnings come in handy. Right. Because when you made it, I love web as an analogy, or previous technology as an analogy to voice. If you built your website in the beginning of www days, you had 3 pages. It was an about us, it was here's where you can find us, and maybe it was here's all our locations. Well, that obviously has evolved into something sophisticated. So for all the other NFL teams that are not yet on Voicify, they're going to be catching up to the Eagles. For all of the other shoe brands that are not yet tracking orders or finding somewhere to go enjoy the product, like Rachel's teams have created, they're now catching up to Wolverine's entire portfolio of brands. So you got to get the first 3 web pages built to sort of round out that analogy, right? You got to get the initial content, the initial utility, the initial purpose, and then use all of the other levers that a platform like Voicify and a space like Voice allow you to learn about and reapply it.
Perfect. Last question. Well, I guess it's a 2-part question. One, what was the most challenging part about going down this journey of building Voice? And what would you recommend to any teams or any companies looking to go down that same road? What do you wish you knew?
At Wolverine, I think it was just what Jason said. It's about reminding your peer set that voice is in its infancy, and that even though you're able to do very cool, very segmented, dynamic content in email and digital on your site, that we are in year 0, year 1. And so being proud of that work and setting that expectation is really important to feel successful, because, yeah, we are working towards a place where we're just going to be able to in your welcome message, hey, Rachel, we've tracked you to hit 400 miles and it's time for a new pair of shoes. Would you like to have those sent to you? Yes. Text you a PDP directly from Amazon. We will be in that commerce space with everything that we have learned. But I think it's expectation setting, knowing where digital is in everything is super important.
Right.
Yeah, same thing for us too. I think really, again, going back to that analogy of web days, right? Like we're just trying to understand what capabilities exist, because if we know what those capabilities are during our ideation phase, we're able to branch off and say, okay, with the voice POV, we can absolutely go and do this without giving yourself that time to do that and then jumping on a little too late. I think we're not going to be as nimble as we need to be to make those strategic decisions when it comes time to really jump. So for us, it's learning, it's growing, it's really absolutely understanding these capabilities. And man, Voicify just keeps putting on more and more these capabilities and abilities in our hands. So thanks, man. We have to learn more. Appreciate it. No, but we're excited. I think this stuff is evolving at a very a rapid pace. So get into it as quickly as possible. We're excited to have more and more of these voices, recognizable voices, replace kind of these standard Alexa voice and Google voice, to provide some more personalized and more kind of hypersensitive opportunities. So we're absolutely excited to kind of go deeper and learn more and continue to A/B test. The voice world is very open right now.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, guys.